Hello, good evening, YouTube. Good evening, wherever you might be watching this. It's a great evening because I get to hang out with my buddy, LinkedIn Larry, aka the author of the NCG Factor, aka Larry Kaufman. Larry, how you doing this evening?
I'm fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm great. You know, it's a beautiful day. I was just commenting right before I clicked the live button. I was asking, and it's sad that I had to ask this question. I asked, is the background behind you real or is it artificial? Because it's so common that we're getting so used to Zoom fake backgrounds these days. But it's nice. You have a beautiful background, Larry.
It's actually real and I'm artificial.
No, you are about as real of a person as it comes, which is a perfect segue. It's a perfect segue to what we're talking about. Larry, before we get into the nuts and bolts of why you're called LinkedIn Larry and what the NCG factor is, and I've got a lot of questions piled up for you, I have to ask the very general question of what are you seeing and hearing out there? What are you seeing and hearing? You are a networker, you talk to people. What are people saying about what's going on in their professional and personal worlds?
Well, I think people are adapting. I think that's the big word. People are adapting to this new world, right? So I think those in transition are adapting to this whole process of networking and interviewing and dealing with 20 million people unemployed. And then, the people that are working, everyone's affected. I'm affected in my business. We're a big company, but still impacted, and everything seems to be generally around, what industry, are you in, and how you're impacted. But I think everyone's feeling the effect and the impact, but I am starting to see a lift, and I see it in the area of my business that I manage at Experience Finance. I'm seeing it professionally with people I'm reaching out to that actually want to see me face to face. I don't know how close they want to get to me, but I'm seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. And so I could see the trending month to month. And actually, this is the first time we started to see a bit of a lift. And I think it's because Illinois has opened up a bit, and I think you're feeling some momentum. And so I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, and what you're saying about everybody's been affected is certainly true. And I think back to when you and I connected. It's been a long time now, and the situation that we're in now is amazingly not all that different from the situation then. And by then, what I mean is around about the 2010 era. Um, Tough, tough economy. Lots of people out of work, lots of businesses struggling, and like you said, everybody being impacted. And if you don't know somebody that was impacted, or if you weren't impacted yourself, you know somebody that has been. And this is, I'd say, probably from just the way it seems from my perspective, worse. Short term, perhaps, hopefully, and it sounds like you're saying you're starting to see things lighten up a little bit, which is great news. So you have a unique perspective, and one that you share, which I love. I'm just going to sort of start right here. You wrote a book, the NCG Factor, and really summing it up is that networking is the beginning, connecting is the journey, giving is the goal. And that's where we'll start our conversation. So, Larry, let's talk about who you are. Let's talk about, you just talked about Experience Finance. Tell us a little bit about your role at the firm and what you guys do.
Sure. So I am a regional managing director at Experience Finance and run a team sales and operations in the Midwest. And we're actually part of Manpower Group, which is a $22 billion global public workforce management company. And we definitely see the trends and saw this shift from talent shortage to talent surplus. And, I bring up my company because as people are in transition, we're putting, a lot of people to work around the globe through Manpower Group into my area. Manpower Group is putting people to work in customer service, into the plants, on the assembly lines, into call centers. We've got the Experis brand. We put people into IT roles, into engineering roles through Experis Engineering. In my world, Experis Finance, accounting, tax, risk advisory roles. So we put people to work. So manpowergroup.com, not trying to do a commercial, but we're putting people to work. So check out the website. And I'm just out there trying to build relationships and help people through my company and through our solutions where we help companies themselves as well.
That's important. Any resources, any companies that are hiring right now, it's a fantastic resource. Manpower is huge, and the fact that Manpower, Experis Finance, that you guys are hiring, I hope that people will check it out. And again, if it's not relevant, if anything we say right now is not relevant to you, you still have a responsibility to share the link with somebody else and make sure somebody else can benefit, especially as we get into the next topic, really the topic that I wanted to focus on tonight. You put in, this was not my doing, Larry, you did this when you started the recording tonight. You typed in your name as LinkedIn Larry, and you are known as LinkedIn Larry. In fact, on Twitter, if I'm not mistaken, your Twitter handle is very connected, but you're known as LinkedIn Larry to many, and to many, as I recall, back in the 2010 era when I met you, you have been known as a global speaker and trainer on LinkedIn. How the heck did you get your start in that line of work? And I have just so many questions on that front of how LinkedIn has evolved and how you've evolved with LinkedIn. Just tell us your LinkedIn journey.
Sure thing. Thanks for asking. Yes, I've been known as LinkedIn Larry. I couldn't put my Twitter handle as LinkedIn Larry. I think that would have been a little off kilter, so I decided
get booted from the platform.
But you know what? I'll give credit to a local entrepreneur and author and speaker, Mary Lane, and Mary and I met years ago, and she said, "Hey, Larry, I've got this group of 35 small business owners, and we meet at a university, a local college, and we just bring in speakers, and we meet once a month. Would you come and talk to our group about LinkedIn? Looks like you're using it. You know a little bit about it." I was doing some recruitment at the time, and I knew a bit about LinkedIn. It was fairly fresh and new. There were probably 1 million members. Today, there's about 700 million. And I went for it. I said, sure, I'll do something. I put together a little PowerPoint, did a little demo. And in my personal opinion, it was awful. It was terrible. But everyone there said I did an outstanding job. And because it's when you know more than everybody in the room, you seem to be that expert. But I vowed to get better. And so I did. And I immersed myself in it and got better. And when I worked for this public company a few years later, my EVP was in Minnesota, and she introduced me when I was going to present to our own internal group about LinkedIn. She introduced me first as Scary Larry, but then she said LinkedIn Larry, and that just kind of stuck. And so I use it everywhere. People see me and they say LinkedIn Larry. They don't remember my last name, but they know LinkedIn Larry.
LinkedIn Larry. So, for the benefit of those that are tuning in, I have to ask about LinkedIn. There's a lot of different users. You talked about the growth of LinkedIn. There's users that are in college. There's users that are just coming out of college, recent college graduates. There's folks, young professionals like myself. There's folks that right now are experiencing layoffs from the job that they thought that they were going to retire from. And we are all on LinkedIn. What is your, this is like a loaded question over here, LinkedIn Larry, but what is the number one thing that people should be doing right now, regardless of whether you're employed or unemployed? How can people be using LinkedIn effectively?
Well, I think the way that you use LinkedIn effectively is you make yourself visible and current. So, your profile should always be current, constantly updating, refreshing, using the right mix of keywords, aligned with your current expertise, your current role. And you never know, you may get a new manager that you're going to report to, and they're going to look at your profile, and it needs to look professional, sharp, current with all your capabilities. I tell people that all the time, that if someone comes in new and they look at your background, they may not have access to your resume. They may look at your LinkedIn profile. And if you share some of your accomplishments, things you've done at your current job, conversely, if you're in transition, it definitely has to be current. And getting out there, even liking, sharing content, even if you're not creating your own, but if you could post something that's relevant, of interest, maybe it's not so much political, but more around your capabilities, your skill sets, things that are current and trending, it's a good thing. Those are good things to do on a regular basis, and connecting with the right people that will be an access point to other great people. So constantly building your network of connections. And people ask me, what's a good number to have? And I always felt there was that milestone, when you hit that 500 plus, and no one could tell if you have 501 or if you have 20,000. It was just hitting that 500 plus. And it really irks me when I see meet the people that are like at 498, 499, just come on, you could do it. The average CEO on LinkedIn has about 930 connections. Did you know the average person on LinkedIn has about 400? And I have had interns work for and with me in college with 500 plus. So I think it's very attainable to hit the 500 plus marker.
So two very personal questions for you, LinkedIn Larry. How many connections do you have on LinkedIn, and how much time do you spend every day on LinkedIn?
So today I have roughly 29,800 plus connections.
Whoa.
So
yes, it is possible to get 500 plus.
Well, I've been speaking for 12 years on an international scale, always speaking, always connecting. I definitely reached out initially and built up this network. And I would say that I spend on average maybe 30 to 60 minutes a day on LinkedIn, and whether it would be on my iPhone app or on the desktop full site version.
One more question, and then I want to talk a little bit about the NCG factor, which really is an important concept and really approach, which connected with LinkedIn can really help anybody that might be watching go a long way. But right now, the big thing, and I keep getting alerts for it, is LinkedIn Learning. There's a lot of courses, there's a lot of e-learning that's available. Have you played around with that, Larry, and do you recommend it?
So I recommend it. I have actually not used it, but a lot of people I know do use it. And I actually recommend for people to go to LinkedIn Learning. And so very powerful to add your skills, and then you could set that up to note on your profile that you've attended those courses on almost any topic. So really powerful to have LinkedIn provide that to you with your membership.
Okay, I'm going to have a couple of other LinkedIn questions for you over the next few minutes that people sent me just before we started recording, and I want to make sure we answer those questions. But you authored a best-selling book last year called The NCG Factor, a formula for building life-changing relationships from college to retirement. Larry, I know you don't do anything that you are not passionate about. So I am curious to understand the inspiration for writing your book, because you and I have a lot in common, and we both have, I think in Yiddish, it would be called the Spilkies, meaning we love being around people. And writing a book, I know firsthand, it takes a lot of time. So the book has been a bestseller on Amazon for job markets and advice, and as well as a number of other categories. So that means it's a really, really good read. I highly, 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 highly recommend it. But what was your inspiration, Larry?
So my inspiration was, I kept talking about I wanted to write a book. Initially, I thought I should just write a book to help college kids, because I think back when I was in college, wasn't a networker, I wasn't a connector, wasn't a giver. I never thought that way, but I thought, boy, all the lessons I've learned over the years, if I could take that back to my college days, that would be powerful. And then, the more you meet people in transition, people working, I realized that why should I limit, this great advice and knowledge I have just to those entering college and in college. So I took it all the way to retirement. The other inspiration was I kept talking about writing a book, but I wasn't doing it. So my wife, one day just said, you've been, investing in these startups that have basically wasted our money. They've never turned into anything. And it's about time that, you invest in yourself, and please write that book. And that was sort of that light that went off, that I've got to do it. And I embraced it and I did it. And I'm thrilled that I did it. So I always, whenever I can, I do these types of talks. I want to give credit to my wife of 31 years who's put up with a lot. But I have something, this legacy I'm going to leave behind when I'm not here. And it's my book. So I'm thrilled to have it out there for everybody.
That's awesome. So I should have started with this question, but what is NCG?
So NCG, it's networking, connecting, and giving. It's the NCG factor. It's this formula. And I say for building life-changing relationships, is the book references from college to retirement. And when you network, when you do it before NCG and the way we typically think about it, and we've been to these events, and you've been there, you spearheaded these events. But for many that go, it's just about how many business cards can I get? It's sort of a race to get a lot of business cards and maybe connect with all those people on LinkedIn. And networking defined through the NCG factor becomes more about the other person, becomes about giving, about thinking how we can connect that person to other people or those they know to other people. It's less about me, it's more about them. And connecting within NCG is being a connector. Not everyone's a connector. Not everybody meets with people thinking, Shalom should know this person because of this reason, and let's put those people together. And people just don't naturally think that way. And I've outlined in the book how you can be a connector and put people together. And giving could just be giving of your knowledge, being a mentor. Giving could be more about being philanthropic and just being a volunteer or sitting on a charity board. And when you bring it all together, it can be life-changing, not only for yourself, but for other people.
Indeed. And I know that helping people in transition is something you talk a lot about in your book, and it's your NCG goal is to help others. How has the book helped people in transition, or how can it help people in transition?
So it wasn't written solely as a job or career transition book, but it really helps you whether you're employed or in transition, but how it can help you if you're looking for your next job. So I actually did incorporate templates about how you introduce yourself. I've incorporated templates really about how you could send emails to people while you're in a transition, position or situation. Also about just how you network and how you have a one-to-one networking me. If I'm looking to you for help, it's how I open up that meeting, how I don't show up and throw up. It's really how I conduct myself professionally so there's mutual benefit during that transition or networking meeting. It's really about how to understand the power of LinkedIn. I wrote a chapter about LinkedIn. There's so many different things that I share within that book about the 5 powerful words that you need to use. I don't know if you remember those words, Shalom, but it's, how can I help you? And it sounds crazy that you're the one looking for a job, but it's so important not to be self-centered. It's so important to think about the other person. And by doing so, actually shifts back to you that person wants to be helpful to you. I talk about, the importance of asking for favors and how to go about doing so, about how you build your network, your inner and outer circles. So a lot of this is for people employed, and then you actually can relate it to people in transition. So really powerful. And let's face it, the kids who just graduated college, guess what? They're in transition. What do they do? Where do they go? How do they start? They're really flustered, and talk about being in transition with 20 million people unemployed. They could be competing with siblings and other family members for the same job. So it's a tough time. So going through my book helps you to understand how to build these relationships and how to ask for favors and how you could help other people.
Very, very interesting. So I want to go back over to LinkedIn for a moment to talk about hashtags. Hashtags, I know, is something that I'm seeing. I mentioned Twitter before, and Twitter has always been known as the place for hashtags. But hashtags, you say, LinkedIn, Larry, are very important on the platform, especially for folks in transition. Tell us why.
So hashtags are good things to incorporate. If you're going to do a post on LinkedIn, that post could be something, very specialized, or it could be very broad. It could be a quote. And then you may want to incorporate some hashtags around that quote. Could be hashtag courage. But if you're really thinking about how it's going to help you in transition, then it's more about going on the homepage of LinkedIn in the search window. And let's say that you're in college looking for an internship, you would type in hashtag internship, and then you would click the magnifying glass to search for that. And then you'd find that that's a followed hashtag that you need to follow. And then that will go on your feed on your homepage in the center. And so if there's an internship, something's been posted, it's going to be aligned with that hashtag. And then you could see positions are open that are an internship, but then you may want to follow a hashtag internships, because maybe someone's posted for internships, and could be for entry level, could be another hashtag. So you start looking for those hashtags. You can include them in your posting, but it's really also about following hashtags. Or maybe you're working and you just want to follow hashtag CFO. Anything about someone posting something with hashtag CFO, hashtag accounting, because I'm in that world, so I talk about that a lot. But so many things that you could search for and have that built into your feed. But if you're in transition, start thinking about the roles. It could be hashtag supply chain role, supply chain careers, could be anything. So you can search for those and see how followed those are, and then follow them, and they flow into your feed. Does that help?
A couple of other quick hits on LinkedIn. How often should the average person be posting an update?
So, there's differing schools of thought. So I don't post daily, maybe a couple times a week at the most, because I don't want people to get upset with me and they keep seeing me posting all these different things, and then eventually they may want to, unfriend me, so to speak. So I just like to do it maybe once or twice a week. Some people, like to use a posting method where they're going to post, every day, every other day. It's really up to you. I just don't want to inundate my network with too many posts. Got to remember as well, as you like and share content, your network, that you're connected to, is going to see that in their feed as well. So if you're also posting and then you're liking and sharing, that could be a lot of Larry. So there's a lot of Larry out there. So I try to control it to a degree.
Hey, you're called LinkedIn Larry. You got to live up to your reputation. Recommendations, endorsements, those both sound like the same thing to me, but there are skills endorsements. There's recommendations, which are written blurbs that go up there. What's important? What should folks be spending time on? What should people be ignoring?
Look, LinkedIn's really, to me, the power of LinkedIn is its research capabilities. To research people you're interviewing with, to research people you're trying to get to, that may be hiring managers. But I think really the recommendations would be like for me, I love recommendations. People recommend me for being a great connector, but if I'm a speaker at an event, they'll recommend me as a speaker, whether it was about my book or about LinkedIn. So that's really helpful and powerful. Or someone that runs a business and you want to have your clients recommend you. But if you're in transition, it's always a good idea to have like maybe 4 to 6 good, solid recommendations, people you worked for, people that worked for you, etc. The skills and endorsements have evolved over time. And so initially you were able to kind of endorse yourself and say you were an expert, right? So I could have said, I'm an expert at LinkedIn, but maybe I was a terrible LinkedIn speaker. But hey, I rated myself highly. I was an expert. And then they came around and said, you know what? You've got to let other people say that you're really good at LinkedIn speaking. You could put about 50 skills out there. It's really about searchability on LinkedIn. Everyone thinks keyword driven, repetition driven. And so adding skills, it's all searchable. So is it great that someone endorses you for those skills? It's a good thing as well. And, but you want it to be real, but make sure they're relevant skills, searchable skills that align with the profession that you're going to be working in or want to work in.
I like what you say, Larry. LinkedIn is really about research, and I think about how I've used LinkedIn. First of all, I mean, I'll admit it. I stalk people. I stalk them all the time. Hopefully, for most of us, our names are Googled. One of the first results that's going to pop up. Well, for you, Larry, the NCG factor will come up. But for most anybody, assuming you're not on the FBI's most wanted list, your LinkedIn profile is going to pop up. You want to make sure it looks good. I'm curious, Larry, about InMail and sending messages to people that you're not connected with. Is that something that you regularly utilize?
So I'm a big believer, if I could see someone's a second degree connection to me, then if I could find a shared connection between us or more that I know that can introduce me, that's the preferred method. If they're third degree, you see third on that profile, you have no warm connectivity, so you have to reach out yourself. And so you can send them an invite, and always send an invite on their profile on the full website, or if it's on your LinkedIn app, you got to click the button more, or you may have 3 dots on your version to personalize and customize that invite. Better be a good message. Do I do a lot of connecting to people I don't know? Maybe sometimes, but rarely. I can usually, with 29,800 plus, I can find a way to get to most people. But some of us don't have that ability to do so, and so you've got to reach out. InMail is a paid member feature. So you get an allotted amount of InMails based upon the level of paid membership. Free members cannot use InMail. So the only way free members can connect is by sending an invitation, and it better be good.
Well, that leads me to my last LinkedIn question, and perhaps my second to last question in general, because I don't want to hold you for too long, Larry, because you've got about 29,000 people that are waiting for you out there in the LinkedIn world. I don't want to keep you away from them. Do you recommend people subscribe to the LinkedIn Premium version, or is that a waste of money?
You know what? I've been a paid member since 2005, and I've presented to all types of associations, corporations all over. And look, I always feel you should test it out, test drive it. So what I try to do is show people what you could do for free, and then what the premium membership is going to entail. Quite frankly, I think the ultimate membership is Sales Navigator, if you can get there. But you really got to be using LinkedIn, and to experience it first, if you understand how to use it, to use the free features. And when you start getting a message, if you want to use this and you like that feature, you want to test it out, and LinkedIn says, you know what, you need to pay for that if you want to use that. Well, then you start to realize that you may need to pay for a membership, People in transition, I do tell them, if you get a message that you're approaching the commercial search limit, that's a free member message you're going to get, then you're starting to use LinkedIn a lot, and you're going to need to go to a Business Plus membership, pay for a membership. You can do pay as you go or pay for a full year, but you will have unlimited searchability on LinkedIn with that membership. So I think it's the things that you may want. If you want to send email, right? If you want to send an unlimited character count email to any one of the 700 million people, paid benefit. So I tell people, kind of take your memberships in stride little by little. A lot of you can test drive for free the premium memberships. So use it for free. If you like some of the premium features you click on you can't get, then start to go for the free trials they gave you, and then go to paid. But yeah, I think it's well worth it. I'm thrilled that I've been using a paid membership for years. LinkedIn has changed my life, to be honest with you.
Well, that's awesome. And last question for you, Larry. In your book, you talk again about the NCG factor: networking, connecting, giving. You talk, I love the transition that I mentioned earlier, that you start with networking and then giving is obviously the goal. And your goal is helping folks, helping others. So what are some best practices that you can share or that you can leave us with for folks at all levels, from college to those at the later stage in their careers, that are trying to secure a job during COVID with over 20 million people unemployed? How do you stand out? What are some of those key tips that you want to leave us with tonight?
So I'll tell you, someone in California, had a really great meeting with me via Zoom, and he sent something after, which I thought was kind of interesting. We're doing video, right? Send me a 16-second video thank you message. And I thought, it's kind of cool. And I started to reflect and thinking about, if you're interviewing now, if you send, like, you want to be that person to send the written, that handwritten note, you can't, because a lot of people are still virtual. Where's it going to go? It may be sitting at their office for months. So what if you did a quick video thank you? How powerful. I think right now we got to network very efficiently and effectively. And so I think it's meeting with the right people, and you have to ask for those favors. Now is the time to call in those favors, but you've got to figure out what's your network, what's your inner circle, and what's your outer circle. And so I think it's all about building relationships now, and you got to do it in a timely manner if you're looking for a job. I think it's the effective use of LinkedIn. I think it's the right research. It's not just responding to every job that you see and just getting the resumes out there. It's networking into those companies, into those roles, and finding out how your network is connected into those companies. It's not to bypass a process. You may get some intelligence about the company, people in the company, or you may get warmly introduced. And right now, because of COVID and 20 million people out there unemployed plus, this is about relationships, and this is about asking for favors. At the same regard, it's about asking how you can help other people. And I know it sounds counterintuitive, but you have to be out there, not just asking for those favors. You have to offer yourself out there to help other people. And it's a powerful way to work. It's the NCG factor in action, and it's going to work. But it's really, when you go out there and you are going to be having an interview with a recruiter, they're people too. Did you look them up on LinkedIn? Did you see who you shared in common? Any second degree person in an interview or you're trying to connect to, find out from your shared network how they know that person, and that's going to help you out a great deal. Like, I got a million things I could share with people, but this is my start. And I think there's a lot of ways that, you could seek help. And you know what? It's a great time just to ask for help as well. There's a lot of people out there like myself that are knowledgeable about LinkedIn. They're all out there. There's a lot of networking groups that I've spoken at that help people in transition, and they offer a lot of different workshops on LinkedIn and interviewing advice, and they're free in many cases. And if they're not, it's worth the small investment. And I just did a program today for a group of 70 folks up in Wisconsin, and it's a volunteer organization. And so I shared some of my expertise today. So use all your resources that you can. They're out there.
Well, that's great. The man is LinkedIn, Larry Kaufman. The book is The NCG Factor, which is available on Amazon. The NCG Factor, a formula for building life-changing relationships from college to retirement. Larry, I've had you on my radio show, and we've talked about this, but really grateful that we've had the opportunity to talk about it in greater depth and really talk about the LinkedIn best practices, the NCG Factor best practices and tips. I hope this is helpful. We're going to be posting this. I'm going to be posting this on my Facebook and of course Twitter and of course on LinkedIn. So please, if you found any of this helpful, share it. And I would strongly encourage you, order a copy of the book, The NCG Factor, order one for yourself and buy one for somebody else. It is, after all about giving. So this is the time for giving. This is the time for relationships. Larry Kaufman, thank you so much, my friend, for joining me on this YouTube chat. Any final comments or closing thoughts?
No, just pay it forward and give. Thank you, Shalom. As always, fantastic. You are a big giver, big connector. Thanks for having me on your show today. You are the best.
I appreciate it, my friend. Thank you, and we'll talk soon.